Greetings, Mindcrafters, and welcome to another exciting Mindcraft podcast. My name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and I've got Dr. Linda here, who is the co-founder of the Goodness Exchange and the host of the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. I love the name of that. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you.
Dr.
I'm
Linda.
so glad to be talking to you.
I'm so glad to have you here. And so, Dr. Linda, how about we kick off this conversation with you sharing a little bit about what the Goodness Exchange is, as well as the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast.
Well, Kimberly, you and I have been on sort of parallel tracks for a long time. You're doing the deep science of the neuroscience of how we best use this fine thing we've got between our ears. And I've been on my end trying to help people understand how we can get the best out of this incredible creation of the internet by knowing the neuroscience that's being used against us there. and once we understand the neuroscience of how the internet has evolved, then we can live our best lives. Then we can have an internet that is unimaginably positive effect on our lives. And the Goodness Exchange is a 10-year endeavor that I started way back when, 2013, before people were crying out for good news. I really saw in my patients a great fear of the future. It was starting then. There were more and more horrible things on the news. Social media was getting a bit crazy more and more every day. And I said, for God's sake, somebody's got to tell people about what's right with the world. Some people's got to celebrate the ingenuity and the ingeniousness and the kindness and the amazing progress that we're making. Because there's lots of science to that too. This is the best time in human history by many, many measures. And so the Goodness Exchange is people's instant access to good news, inspiration, not puppies in mailboxes stuff, not dogs on skateboards, but articles and videos and so forth about dogs that can detect early stage breast cancer, about the guy who's discovered that single women make the best game wardens in Africa. That's a fascinating innovation. The fellow who has no eyes and yet he sees, and he goes around the world teaching blind people how to use their hearing to see the landscape around them. I mean, there are just a million stories of goodness and progress happening right now that we're just not hearing about because of the way the digital world is structured. And so you and I are running parallel. You're telling people all about the mind and so forth, and I'm connecting your kind of insights to how we use this remarkable resource in our life, the internet.
I have to say, Dr. Linda, I love that you brought in the neuroscience piece. I don't know. I have a little pet peeve, and I'm going to guess maybe you do too. Because you and I both get down to it. You know, like what's actually happening. So when influencers or different people say, "Oh, backed by neuroscience," but they got nothing, that makes me crazy. Right. We really need to rewire the brain. And it sounds like the work you're doing is doing exactly that. People look for the news. In fact, you sent me a little note about that. Why don't you tell us about, this is super interesting, what you sent me, little bullets, about the percentage of adults who report feeling stressed out by the news. Why don't you tell us about that? And also a Harvard study, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Goodness Exchange is rolling along for about 10 years, publishing one article after another about good things that are happening in the world. And then the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast is the outshot of that. I was having conversations to write those articles with the most extraordinary, cool people in the world. And finally, during the depths of the pandemic, my team said, because I would get off those calls and just say, you wouldn't believe the conversation I just had. And they said, for God's sakes, record them and start a podcast. So here we are, really cooking along, doing a podcast, talking to all these innovators, helping people understand that the world's actually still amazing. And then a nonprofit founder got a hold of us last fall who has a whole lot of volunteers. And she said, Dr. Linda, can I give all my volunteers a subscription to the Goodness Exchange for their Christmas gift instead of a mug and a t-shirt? I
Oh,
can't give
totally.
them one more mug or t-shirt because she realized that our worldview is being so tainted by this negative narrative in the news
Mhm.
that they were losing volunteers, that people need to know that they're part of something much bigger than themselves. And if all feels hopeless, we stop giving, we stop volunteering, um, we stop being as engaged at work with our coworkers and so forth. So that inspired us to dive into the science of good news to see if there was any real science on this. And we found some incredible things. There's this amazing researcher, and I can't even begin to pronounce her name, but I'm going to give it a shot. Paola Secchi Demeglio. So at Harvard, Paola Secchi Demeglio did this great study, and she found that exposure to less than 4 minutes of good news each day made people 18% more optimistic,
Wow.
32% less anxious, and 12% more grateful. 32% less anxious. Now, I don't know a pill that can do that. I
No.
don't know a counselor. I don't know a psychiatrist that can make you 32% in just 4 minutes. But this is hard science that we are not only wired for doom and gloom, which is what I tell people
Mhm,
the internet is
mhm.
catering to, that our amygdala, that part that arguably we're all here because we our ancestors were really good at finding danger and disorder.
You're 100%.
Yeah, but what I think is, and I'll ask you that question. I don't think we've had a software upgrade in our noggin for 35,000 years, so we're still running around with that same brain that kept us safe from saber-toothed tigers, right?
Oh, 100%, the reptilian part, like you said, the amygdala part of the limbic system. Yes. So now, as you were saying, Dr. Linda, that I mean, thank goodness we were predisposed to negative thinking back then because that kept us alive. We wouldn't be here now, right? But now
Right.
it's like the reptile thing is still happening, and it's like, oh, I missed an email. Oh, I was left out of the holiday party, and it's like saber tooth level fright. And so the work you're
Yes.
doing is is really doing a rewire because since we are predisposed, as you know, it's a little bit heavier lift to climb out of that. But once we
Mhm.
start it, like anything else, playing guitar or anything else, you have calluses for a while, right? Then they go away, and then
Yeah.
you're playing Margaritaville, right? It's the same with the positive thinking. So maybe you can share. What else did you say in here? Oh, you said something about the checking news frequently. What was that part?
Yeah. So it just turns out that people who check the news, 1 out of 10 adults check the news every single hour. And of course, the news isn't telling us about the guy who filled
No.
10,000 potholes in India. The guy, the news isn't telling people any of the stories that we're telling people. And so 56% of adults now say that following the news and social media makes them incredibly stressed. So then there's another statistic that's shown in there that 29% of adults now have tuned out the news entirely.
Wow, wow, and
Entirely.
I suppose there's a
Yes.
balance in there somewhere.
Yeah, and you would expect somebody like me to say, and I did early in my life, early 10 years ago, I would say, okay, just, you're a consumer. Just tune out the news. Because
Yeah.
if they're not going to show us a balanced worldview, then we don't need to buy the soap that they're selling, right? But I don't know. I now it didn't take me very long to stop that. Because I think that we have to be educated about our world to give our kids reasonable
Right, right,
advice
right, right.
or our friends or just know the right steps or missteps. And so I think 12 minutes a day is about all you need. The way the news repeats itself, if you don't get it in your 12 minutes, it's probably not something you need to have top of mind.
Oh my God. I just tell you, Dr. Linda, I think I'm probably, I have a fast processing speed, but I get that stuff done in about 7.5 minutes every
Okay.
day. And I tell you this, and you'll appreciate this because I've been on a news fast for probably a few decades. And
Mhm.
just a news fast. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
be the ostrich and not know, like you're saying, we need, we have a responsibility to know when people are
Yeah.
being hurt and oppressed in other countries. But like you said, in today's world, it's not like it was in the, seven, like we can get it at any time of day, 24/7, and it's not going to be before I go to sleep or anywhere close, and it's not going to be anywhere near to where I'm waking up because
We
the
have
unconscious mind is going to like reside there.
Yes, I viewed a guy on the podcast who's written an amazing book about efficiency and effective time. He wrote for The Guardian for 10 years about
Mhm.
time management, and then one day he was walking on a beach and with his 4-year-old, and he realized that some news story that was very distressing was still playing through his mind 4 hours after he heard it. And here he was with this present,
Mhm. Mhm.
precious moment with his
Mhm.
child on the beach, and somehow that triggered a whole sort of unfolding, like a giant origami of the whole sort of BS of time management. And he had to stop being the head time management guy in the world because he realized how much of our brain and our time management is all caught up in our neuroscience. And really, there were some fundamentals that he teaches, but one of them is that we absolutely cannot have our brains start of the day dipped into this fight or flight part of the realities of our world. Arguably, these are realities, but that's not the time to have them in our in our mind because they never leave, and that makes from his angle time management is absolutely impossible because your brain's working in the background all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll appreciate this too, Dr. Linda. You're very similar. Because of this, I do gratitude bookends when I wake up and before. I mean, I do my like I don't miss it. Like I like to say 100%. Let's say 99.9 gratitude journal. It literally, I'm done with I'm grateful for, I'm grateful for, I'm grateful for before my tea beeps in the microwave, like that fast. I say thank you before I get out of bed, like in like not words, just thank you. That's it. Thank you again when my feet hit the floor. And then at night, to like prime the mind for waking up, right? The unconscious is living off whatever, as you know, all this is living off whatever we feed it at night. So we wake up then, it's like dominoes, right? You wake up starting out like, what's going on, wherever. You're starting out in a panic.
I have to share another one that, I could go on and just tell stories about the big major insights that my podcast guests have laid on me. Here's one that relates to exactly that. I was interviewing this woman named Cole Baker Bagwell, who works for a company that teaches corporations all over the world how to make their cultures more kind,
Oh, nice.
which is a giant step forward. And she lays on me the cactus blanket analogy. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
All right. So, one of her routines that relates well to what we're talking about here is she does not let herself roll over, grab her phone, and look at anything.
Oh, no.
What she does is she very, very intentionally has a really inspiring piece of music teed up, or her favorite this or that, or a little series pictures of her son, or whatever it is. That's what she chooses to start off her day with, and she calls that a blanket choice.
Like that.
And then there's people she knows who pick the cactus choice. So if we roll over and reach for the phone beside their bed, and the first thing we do is start diving into the craziness of social media or breaking news, that's like purposefully falling on a cactus.
Oh, I love that.
You're never gonna get those little tiny. Have you ever had a cactus like on the windowsill fall in your hand, and your impulse is to catch it, and you have these little tiny, tiny
Yeah, you're
ones in your
pulling them
hand
out
for the
for
rest of the day?
months.
Yes. So she goes blanket cactus. That's her choice. Every morning she says that to herself because she acknowledges that she has the same impulse to, especially when things are happening in the news that are really crazy. She has the same impulse, but she reminds herself, she says to herself, blanket, cactus. It's my choice. And then she chooses
Yeah.
something that will feel like a blanket to her that she can wrap herself in because the challenges will come in our day. They will.
God.
But if all you got to help you when the challenge does come today is you're starting out falling on a cactus that you chose,
And you chose
then
this.
you're in trouble.
That's the thing, Dr. Linda, too. Like people don't always get especially when we talk about time management and people say, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. Who's in charge of your schedule? So here's the thing. You're gonna love this. My phone is in a drawer in the kitchen, plugged into its little thing in the wall. 'Cause I also put it in the drawer because I don't, not that I would say anything horrible, but it wants to be overheard when you're in your kitchen, right?
Right.
So I put it in the drawer and it stays there. It is nowhere near where I wake up or go to sleep. It's kind of cool that you just brought that up because the universe is just amazing like this. I was just doing this, lightning strike me if I'm making this up, 2 hours ago before this talk we're having right now. I was working on something similar about people waking up to their phones. It's so toxic.
And you know what's good? I hear people realizing it now. Before, when I talked about how what we give our attention to expands,
Oh, 100%.
which is a truth. It just is.
It just
It
is.
was true 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. It's true now. What you give your attention to expands. So I talk to people a lot about this thing I call the four shifts, and I'll share that with you if you allow me, because it's been
Oh, absolutely.
really helpful to thousands of people. So so the number one thing to remember is that we may still have 35,000-year-old hardware between our ears, or software, but we what we do have is a lot more self-awareness
Hmm, hmm.
than we did 35,000 years ago. We have a lot more choices. We didn't have any choices. You just had to live in the moment and hope you live to the next, right?
Hmm.
But we have a lot more choices. So one of the things that the advent of the internet and our cell phones offers us as a choice is what we give our attention to. Okay, so here are the four shifts. I remind people, because most people seem like they actually know this, but um, the 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 internet is built to trigger our worst impulses. I think almost everyone knows that now. Is that algorithms are built to trigger
Oh,
our worst social media, blah, blah, and then we click on the anaconda with the human form in it because we're curious about what a snake ate a person. All that is to just grab and hold our attention. That's how people make money in the world of the internet. How long they can grab and hold our
oh,
attention.
totally.
So let's say we all know that. We don't act like we know it, but we say we know.
Good
Okay,
point.
so the first shift is to pause. Pause before you click on anything. Because here's what I've learned in the last 10 years, going from no internet knowledge to internet giant publisher. Pause before you click on anything because someone is counting every click you make. That's how you make money on the internet. Someone is counting every click you make. And the second shift is to ignore more. So you pause and you say to yourself, do we need more of this? And I don't care if it's somebody on your political team winning for the day or some horrible, atrocious thing, whatever it is, you just pause and ignore more. Because we can ignore 80% of what we used to click on right into obscurity. The truth about the internet is that we have all the power there. The things that are thriving because we gave our attention to it. It's as simple as us just saying, no, I will not click on that thing. The third shift is seek signs of attention, seek signs of goodness and progress. Okay. Because these algorithms, we blame the algorithm, but algorithms were not invented to be evil. They were invented to be a shortcut. So we got what we wanted. And they're built to look at what we clicked on last and give us more of that. So so if we're clicking on the blobfish and crazy mean things and anything, we're going to get more of it, except when we don't, when we ignore more. And that third shift, that seek signs of goodness and progress. See, if you're not giving your algorithm enough information because you're not clicking on every crazy thing you see, it starts looking for what you are giving your attention to. And if you start seeking signs of goodness and progress and clicking on that, then that's what you start to see. Like, I literally don't see the world that everyone else says they see on the screens in their lives. because I never violate this, never. And the few times that I ever have, I regretted it forever.
Uh-huh.
I once clicked on a Best Buy ad and my entire screens were blue and yellow for months thereafter because since I'd never given it any information, it thought that was the only thing I cared about. And the fourth shift is when you see signs of goodness and progress, for God's sakes, share it because that's all that matters. Everybody probably remembers a time when likes mattered on the internet, but now it's really internet content producers are only producing more of what we will share. So pause before you share that crazy comment that you just have to make on some social media thing. Don't like it's back to something our grandmothers told us. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. Or, I tell people to wait 24 hours. Like, go ahead. If you really need to get something off your chest, some response to some horrifying thing on social
Definitely.
media that offends you at your core, go ahead and write it. That'll do something. You can tell us what that does in our neuroscience, but it does something to me to go ahead and type it. But I don't press send. I wait 24 hours. And I could count on one hand after doing this for 10 years how many times I've actually pressed send the next day.
No, I love it. That's the pause button thing because those
Yeah.
impulses, it's that Sanskrit word shenpa, that urge we have when somebody gets our goat, so to speak, and we just have
Mhm.
to react. It's not even respond. Respond is slower.
Yes.
It's like react, right? It's resisting that because I can't think of an English word that matches it. Like this. It's that we have going on. We
Yes.
gotta get somebody back or say it or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna like this, Dr. Linda, because I think I have to give credit to somebody who's not me. I think it may have been Tony Robbins, but it stuck with me because it's what you're saying, and it's such a good one-liner. I love one-liners. Where the focus goes, the energy flows.
That's
Is that the
it.
best?
That's the best. It
Wherever we put
is.
it, it manifests and expands into other stuff.
That's it. And the simplest I could put the four shifts is your click is a vote.
Ooh, I like that.
The four shifts, that's what it is. Pause, ignore more, seek signs of goodness, and share it. And really the big thing there is the teaching in those four shifts is that your click is a vote and you will get more of what you click on it. It's like saying, yes, we need more of this. And that always helps me stop short of clicking on things too. It's because I know the world, even though it's something I might agree with or something, I know the world doesn't need that kind of animosity, so I won't give it my attention.
Oh, I love that because that's like you said, transcending and
Mhm.
how we all need to be part of something bigger than ourselves. That's kind of how you opened up,
Mm.
right? You started
Yes.
and I think that all of this is like we all need a sense of meaning and purpose, or a straight road to depression. We
Mhm.
know that. And also when you're talking about this shifts and the clicking, Dr. Linda, you're also it's kind of like you're expanding the good stuff while simultaneously pruning
Yes.
like dead bushes. You're
That's
pruning the
it.
negative stuff, so there's more room for it's like
Yeah.
both together is the best recipe, right?
Yeah, it comes down to it comes down to things like this is and okay, so we do get to decide what comes next. We and it's not advertisers or big corporations. They're nothing without us, right?
Right.
So I often talk about this thing called the gratitude economy. Like for instance, if we give our attention on the screens in our lives and in our daily life too to the people who make us feel lucky, the people who feel like trusted advisors, the people who are going the extra mile, you know then those people thrive and flourish, and then that version of reality thrives and flourishes.
Right.
And that's the way the internet works too. It's like if you drive an extra 35 miles to go to a hairdresser or a barber, or if there's some restaurant that you just love and every time you're in Boston you go there, those are parts of the gratitude economy. Or if there's a certain kind of shoe, like I love a kind of shoe that you can plant in your backyard and a tree grows from it. When you're done with it, you just throw it in your backyard, dig a shovel, and a tree will grow.
Wow.
Oh, okay, so I pay extra for that shoe. but it gives me no end to delight when people compliment me on the shoe to say, yeah, and I mean, we need to have more things in our life that make us smile.
Totally. And positivity attracts positivity, right? Like when I hear people say, usually it's the negative Nellies, right? But misery loves company, and I want to say, I tell my students, that's not it. Misery loves miserable company. The good vibes have a force field up against that stuff because you know.
Mm. Yeah, I think that that one of the things that always attracts me to the neuroscience of things and this whole term of mindfulness, you know, it means that to me that word mindfulness means that we are pausing and not running around on autopilot.
Hmm.
People kind of use the word mindfulness as sort of a spiritual, sometimes, you know, they attach it to some spirituality or you know, I don't know, but I don't. I just say my mind is full of choices, and I really consciously think about the choices I make so that I can have a better life or so that I can have a better impact on others or whatever. But we're on autopilot. We almost never do that. I think evolution has set us up for that too. I think we evolved to just take care of the self because that's what you had to do 35,000 years ago.
Right.
And so mindfulness reminds me to make sure I know the whole picture, the full picture, make sure I know the full picture of the world, the that I understand that everybody's carrying a burden. So rather than get mad at my brother, maybe I say, oh, that was really rotten what he just said to me, but who knows what burden he's carrying. I mean, if we think about the fullness of life and don't just think about our little snapshot of it right now, this minute, um, we can be a lot more patient, and kinder than we need to be.
No, I absolutely love that. You know, I'm a big fan of mindfulness, and I think a lot of people don't realize that being mindful isn't about meditating or sitting in a lotus. But you can do that if you want to,
Yes.
but it's just about being present. You can be doing the dishes, taking a shower, having a conversation, eating, whatever it is. Like my woods walk in the morning, fully present, or I'd miss out on so much activity going on around me, right? And so autopilot for me, it's funny you bring that up because to me, autopilot is the single biggest thief of life minutes that there could possibly be. And the internet is a life minute sucker. Just
Yeah, and I really want people to appreciate the fact that I think the internet is the greatest thing that humanity could have ever brought along. I'm not an internet hater. I'm just one of the points that I make about that sucking sound that you just made is that the steam engine did that, made us all feel very frightened. The printing press made us feel very frightened. Like the internet is just a human invention, like the printing
right,
press, like
right,
GPS, like everything else. And none of those things stayed the way the first iteration.
right, right, right.
Eventually, in about 20 years, the steam engine had to be completely revamped because of killing people all over the place, no matter what it is. The Industrial Revolution lasted about 20 years before we had to totally rethink throwing everything in the river next
What are
door,
we
right?
doing? Right.
So we're there with the internet. And I think that there's a reimagining of the role of the internet in our lives that includes exactly what you and I are talking about. What we give our attention to matters. And I tell people like the worst thing I can see, I have to look away when I see people doing it at their lunch hour. When I see people holding their phone and scroll, click, scroll, click, scroll. Oh, you are just voting for all the crazy stuff that your amygdala told you had to give your attention
Right,
to
right. And it's
because it is
expanding.
danger and disorder. Yes, you just gave all those terrible things votes because that's the reason why you clicked on them. On autopilot, you're only going to click on the things that your amygdala is telling you are danger and disorder. So so back to the bigger picture, and the good news is that we can have these conversations that there's the great Netflix documentary about the social dilemma that if there's any Netflix thing I would tell everyone to watch, especially with their
I've
kids.
seen that. It's good.
Yeah, it's not doom and gloom. I have a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not gonna watch that. I can't take it," but no, it's not doom and gloom. It's just the inventors of the internet sitting on a bar stool in a warehouse is a very clean background, very, just stark, telling how we got the first like button, telling how they invented the
Right,
algorithm for
right.
YouTube, telling and then what happened to it, how their good idea got abused and taken into this new land that we're at that's so destructive. So
Yeah.
it just will opens your eyes about the game being played with your emotions.
Hmm.
So we can decide not to play it.
We can see, but I love how you keep driving that point home because it is our choice. And definitely, I would say since the prefrontal cortices, as you know, like teenagers and young adults aren't even fully developed till they're 25, I don't think they're always aware that it really in the end is a choice. Plus, the internet is seductive. And I think when I was said the word internet before, I guess I meant that to a degree, but I was more focused on the social media part
Mhm.
because that's I think if we just group the internet, because obviously there's research. I'm currently brushing up on my Italian because I can with the, I mean, that's great. But social media
Lovely.
is causing a lot of damage, I
Yeah,
think.
I just got off a phone call with a group that works in the deepest part of India with a monk that retired from being pretty close to the Dalai Lama. He retired to adopt 123 abandoned children. And yeah, he's an incredible. He himself was
Awesome.
abandoned in a latrine when he was a little guy, and that's how he wound up in a monastery because there was nobody to feed him or take care of him. His grandparents gave him to a monastery. But anyway, he spent 10 years in the United States. The Dalai Lama selected him to spend 10 years in the United States and learn how modern Buddhism, could be brought to our culture. And one of the things he says to audiences, he's a great speaker, is that American children are much more unlucky than the kids that live in remote Tibet when it comes to one thing, is that they don't love themselves. A huge amount of American children don't love themselves.
I just got a chill down my back for real.
Yeah, because of social media. Social media decides that if you're gray-headed, you're old. If you don't look a certain way, then you're fat. If you, it, you know, it just there's just so many things. Are you smart enough? Are you fast enough? Are you tall enough? Are you wealthy enough? Are think of all the things you could
Social
put in
enough,
front of
straight
enough.
enough, all of it, right?
Yes, all of it, right? Are you avant-garde enough? Are you whatever it is? You can never be enough in North American culture. And that's one of the big things he took away from his 10 years here is with all the problems they have in eastern India where things are very poor right on the Bhutan border. um that is not something that kids suffer from, but here it's a great problem, and social media is at the heart of that. And of course there's a lot of science and a lot of questions about social media and young people right now going on. I love that dialogue. It's sad, but I love that we're having a dialogue about it.
Yeah, no, and I really did get a chill down my back. I'm not wired for lies because I also hear it from my students. I have a lot of first years. I think, I have all the 4 years, but mostly first years. And, in Minecraft that I teach, stuff comes off because very reflective, well-being oriented. And it's all about, proactive mind health, right? And so they start to share stuff. That is like the number one biggest issue with our young adults. Of course, those kids you're talking about then grow up and I think a lot of people sadly are in our age range still wrestling with those demons.
Mm, yeah. And that's who's going to raise the next generation of children and that's going to be the next generation of coworkers that we have and so forth. So no, this is big picture on the internet is that it's gotten into some really strange territory that is not the ideal invention that is, probably destroying more than it's creating. This is what I say about the internet. It's like any other human invention. It can be used like a hammer to build things or destroy them,
No, that's a good analogy. That's a super good analogy.
just like a hammer.
and I think that, when it comes down to it for the developing minds, right up till 25, awareness is key to most things, right? So the literacy piece, and then educating on you do have the choice to shut it off.
Yeah.
You have the choice to unplug the drug. You can do it.
I think we're getting there. I'm hearing more and more and more conversations about this. And that's one thing I've been good at over the last 10 years. I skim the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times every single day, so people can't call me rose-colored glasses. That's a common. I get interviewed a lot, and some people are more friction oriented than others, and they always want to bring up that because I'm the good news. Uh, I was the closer for one of the largest TEDx's in the country, and they billed me as the good news media mogul, and which my team thought was so funny. And one of the things that I learned from this exposure to the way people think about good news is that people kept accusing me of having rose-colored glasses, as if all I could see was the goodness. And first of all, I don't even think that's possible in our world. There's so much media coverage of the badness. But then it's back to choice. It's
Hmm.
back to choice. Yes, I do choose to give my attention to things that are amazing about the future and amazing about the present. But uh, it's all about choice, Kim. It's all about choice. We just have to have the self awareness in the present. Back to something you said, in the present moment, we have to be mindful enough to realize that we're sitting there spending our whole entire lunch hour chewing on our sandwich, scrolling and clicking on crazy stuff when we could be turning to our coworker and talking about a book that we both read, or we could be, making a good old fashioned phone call to our mother who's sitting in a assisted living place. There are so many other things that we could be doing with these moments that we're getting sucked away on
Oh,
the
no
internet.
question. I am a big, about the life minutes thing. And I'm a super social bug, as you know. And sometimes I have a little spot on campus where I go and sit by myself sometimes. And I can look out the Adirondacks and Lake Champlain and just life minutes being well spent. It's not usually a lot of life minutes, right? It's usually maybe 15 or 20, but I feel so rejuvenated, and which I also feel with my colleagues too. I'm super extroverted, so I love that. But it depends on the day. And I don't think people always get that when we like your choice thing, when you're choosing to give that up. Let's just say it's 15 minutes of looking at Lake Champlain, eating a barbecue chicken wrap. Okay. If I'm
Mhm.
choosing to go be on my phone, which wouldn't happen right there, right? You're it's like a bar, it's a swap. You're giving up the serenity, the peace, and the view for that you're not getting back ever. It's like when I
Ever.
say spend your life minutes as if they're cash, it's like buying a sweater somewhere. The money's gone and now you have the sweater. So your life minutes are gone and now you have the cell phone scrolling. That's it. What do you have to show for that? You know?
And often what you have to show for it is a diminished self-image. I'm not good enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not rich enough. Don't forget that, you know, I'm for the listeners, I'm tracing the edges of the screen that I'm in, right? Like that's how much we see of people's lives is this little box. We don't know what's going on right outside the edges of that little box. Did you hear about, well, it was about a year and a half ago when somebody exposed that a whole bunch of social influencers were actually renting little stage sets that looked like they were in a Learjet, and you could rent it for $500 an hour and then pretend like you were on a Learjet talking on your social media.
And the
What?
point is what? Really?
Well, to make us all feel like
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
less
yeah.
than.
Of course, right. No, I mean, I got that, but I'm just thinking like, think of how that just is sad to me. That's just so sad to me.
Yeah.
Like, what is the need to elevate yourself to that level to just, but I don't know.
Mm. When I'm always going to try and steer things back to what's possible. Um, because this is a downward spiral conversation right now. One of us has to have the self-awareness to go, okay, so what's possible? And what's possible is that we use the same tools on social media to lift others up,
Mhm, mhm.
to sort out what lights us up. I once I had this woman say to me, well, I don't need the goodness exchange for good news. I go on social media and all I see are the two things I care about in the world: Brittany Spaniels and cooking. And, in a way, she was right. Is that, she has done the sort of what I've said in the four shifts. She's decided what she's going to give her
Right, right, right,
attention
right.
to: cooking and Brittany Spaniels. And she's, 70-ish, retired life. It's all she cares about. She takes so much joy from only those two topics. Okay, so what lights you up? The only step I would say with her is that, gosh, how do you share that joy with others? And you know what she said? She does the Brittany Spaniel rescue. Brittany Spaniels, if you've ever been around them, they're kind of busy. And so her way of giving back to the world is that she does Brittany Spaniel rescue.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's not like she's just self-involved and in some little doing nothing world of cooking and Brittany Spaniel. She's all also taken what lights her up and figured out. And of course, she went on and on about who she cooks for and how she cooks and all that. So she's taken what she loves and what lights her up and using the internet to make the world a better place for anybody who has anything to do with Brittany Spaniels or food. Great.
No, 100%. And I think that that's a good story. I think probably no matter what, probably some sort of limitations are good because it's saturating, and I think especially for younger people that don't have that ability to see around the corner quite as much, narrowing that space of that I think is probably good too. And I know for me, I don't give back on the level that she does. But I listen and I listen to only positive things. I will not listen to anything that isn't around my way into work. It's Wayne Dyer or I have a whole list of lengthy Joe Dispenza, and so I think it leaks out.
That's
I love him, but it leaks,
yeah.
and of course my dear friend Oprah. So it leaks out of me in my life. It just comes out
Yes.
at lunchtime or it's funny things or whatever. And I think that become it because it's more free. I think you're exactly the same. For me, it's a lifestyle. Like I don't
Mhm.
it's part of me now. I'm just constantly looking for the positive as close to all the time as is possible. And it leaks out to other people.
Mhm. And it's a resource. It's a well of perspectives that we can draw on when we most need them. Like my life for 2 years was a shambles. My husband and I lost four immediate family members in 6 months. You and I first met when my mom was
Yes,
dying.
yes.
I broke my arm so bad that I lost the feeling in my left hand, so I couldn't be a dentist anymore. And exactly 1 year later, I broke my leg so bad I was in a cast from groin to ankle for 4 months and had to have two surgeries. God, through all of this, it was in our business, our two most senior employees retired. It just couldn't have been crazier. And you know what? Oh, that day that I was sitting on the deck with my leg bent backwards like a flamenco, broken, and waiting for the ambulance, I said to my husband, "We can do this. Good thing, bad thing. Who knows?" Because almost everything that happens once you get in the mindset that you and I are talking about, your mind is like a heat-seeking missile for possibilities. Okay, now what?
Totally.
And you'll find them once you tune in to other people's good ideas, other people's generosity, other people's compassion, or stories of other people's coping skills. Then it's yours when you need it.
100%. I think this is probably a good place to wind up because I hear sometimes people saying, toxic positivity. And to me, that's kind of like an oxymoron because really, because we, like you're saying with all those things that happened to you, I was around for the
Mm.
beginning of that and the leg it doesn't mean to deny or minimize your feelings. It means to feel is to heal, right? Feel, process, and then make a conscious choice to shift out of that. And I know for
Yeah.
me too, I remind myself whenever contrast comes, that's what I like to call it. Whenever contrast appears, whether it's severe like your leg or it's just like a prickly pear that whatever, in the workplace, whatever, try to remind myself that life happens for us, not to us. Right? There's growth coming from, and it's a tough sell when you're in it. Like with the leg thing and the arm and not being able to do dentistry anymore. That's a hard sell when you're in it. When you look back though, bad breakups lead to better partner. Getting out of a job leads to you started your own business, whatever. And really getting out of that victim. Why did this happen to me? Why did I break my leg? You didn't do that, right? It sucked. It was hard. It was terrible. Yet growth came out of it.
Almost every single time. There's this great uh, philosopher that I've interviewed a couple times on the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. His name is Dr. Sweetkumar Rao. Dr. Rao rose in his 20s really high in Warner Communications. He accidentally got the job to do the ad for The Exorcist. His boss was really, really sick for 3 or 4 weeks, and at 27, he got given that, and he just blew it out of the water. Yeah, those ads that we remember for the movie The Exorcist, that was Sweetkumar. Anyway, he worked in that world for a while and decided it was very too crazy for him. Then he had one of the most important business courses at Columbia uh, that people loved. And then he decided the world of academia is weird. So he went off and he studied all the world's religions and wisdom cultures, and he left all the religion out and just kept the timeless wisdom. So now he
Wow.
just goes around the world and speaks at Google and Harvard and everywhere and talks about the timeless wisdom. So one of the concepts he shares is called good thing, bad thing, who knows? And no matter what happens, he just says this happened. And I did it that morning. I'd had plenty of practice then over 2 years of all the deaths and the broken arm and all that. That morning, leg bent backwards like a flamingo. I sat there and I said, this happened. Good thing, bad thing. Who knows? And I made that my mantra through that whole day. And now exactly a year later, wow, there is some real good that came of it. It's not perfect. But what about just playing the cards we're dealt? That's it. No whiners.
No whiners. Like the John Kabat-Zinn, he talks about it with thoughts, like waves, like the ocean, they're not going to stop. And here's the thing, we were put on this earth to like learn to love ourselves and everybody else better, right? To grow,
Right.
advance as human spirit, spiritually and all that. So the waves are going to keep coming. So rather than try to think that it's all going to be great when they stop, which isn't going to happen, appreciate the peaks and just kind of roll with and just learn to surf. Learn to surf because they're not going to stop.
That's it. And the same on the internet. Learn to surf for goodness and progress. Don't
Yes.
don't surf for the danger and disorder. And then don't forget the part that we haven't talked about is if you do give your time and attention to the things that are good on the internet, not only will you elevate and expand your worldview, which makes you more valuable to others and yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but you will also elevate and expand the possibilities for those good things that you gave your attention to. Because remember, attention is how things rise to the top and get sponsored
100%.
and right. So it's just good all the way around to be a more judicious internet user and ignore more. Pause and ignore 80% of what you used to click on.
Ignore 80%. Where the focus goes, the energy flows.
Energy flows,
Right.
right?
And yeah, we'll just wind up with that. And plus, you're also not dumping Miracle Grow on the algorithms for negativity, right? It's kind of just like a little
Exactly.
cyber boycott kind of thing.
Yes.
So it sounds
Yes.
awesome. Well, it has been such an amazing pleasure, Dr. Linda, to have you on the Minecraft podcast. And I have a feeling this isn't going to be the last time. So I hope to have you back and to continue our conversations about this. Thank you so much for being here today.
Great. Thank you. I'm delighted.
Okay, hang on. I'm just going to get this stopped.